today's sew along, we are going to go over common pattern alterations. First of all, we're going to go over finding your size, how to cut out your pattern. There's definitely a lot of questions about cutting out your pattern since it's available in letter A4 as well as copy shop, so I want to address some of those. Once we cut out the pattern, I will be able to show you some common pattern alterations, and then after that I'm going to show you how to cut out your actual fabric. I'm going to do a little bit of selfish sewing and cut one out for myself. I really want to make one of the neon and periwinkle ones. So I have a lot of things going on here, Instagram Live and Facebook Live. If any questions come up along, feel free to put it in the comments. I'm going to do my best to answer all of them as we go along, but if I don't get to them, just DM me or put it in like another comment or email me hello@madalynne.com and I will get them. So also, if you missed last week's video, since the Fenix was released, I will be doing several sessions over the course of like a few weeks. It's like a little bit more than a month, going over everything that you need to make the Fenix bodysuit. So in the first session, I covered the design and the inspiration as well as the layering option, so how to deselect and select your sizes. So if you want to know more about the design and inspiration, check out that video. It's on the Fenix Facebook group as well as on Madalynne's YouTube channel. Okay, so let's get right to it today. I have my lovely model right here. She's very obedient. She does whatever I say. So we're going to go with the first thing that we're going to get into is size. So I'm going to show you how to measure yourself, and then a little bit about torso length, because torso length and bodysuits are so important. I feel like many people shy away from bodysuits because they're like, no, it's not going to work for me. It's not going to work for my torso length. I always try on bodysuits. They're always too short, or they're always too long, or I'm too tall, or I'm too short. And so I want to go over that so that you know how to make those alterations so that you can make a Fenix. And also how the Fenix differs from the Lauren bodysuit. I've been getting a lot of those questions. Okay, so let's go right into finding your size. It is so not hard to find your size. First of all, size is just a number. I feel like a lot of people get caught off or they just get so frustrated with sizing, and that's because there's no consistency in sizing, especially on lingerie brands. You know, you can wear a 28E in one brand and then like a 32D in another brand. You're like, why am I, 6 different sizes across 6 different bands? I always tell people, rely on your measurements. If you know your measurements, you have more of a success rate with finding your right size. So I'm going to show you how to find your full bust size as well as your under bust size, waist and hips. So, and this is one of the newest kits as well, featuring the neon lace as well as the orange. So good. I'm all about color this season. All about color. All right, so I have a tape measure here, and you want to find your full bust, your under bust, your waist, and your hips. So for a full bust, all you need to do is measure around the fullest part of your bust. So you're going to take your tape measure. A couple of things. One, measuring. You want to be wearing it. You can, if you are a smaller cup size, you can go braless and measure yourself. If you are a larger cup size, try to wear a bra that is unlined, so not padded, to measure yourself. You can also wear like a really supportive cami or something like that. You just don't want to try it on with like molded cups or a padded bra because that is going to change your measurements. So you are going to put the tape measure around the fullest part of your bust. And it's important that you keep the tape level all the way around. So it's also really important because a lot of people get really nervous when taking their measurements. And they're like, oh, what number am I? Am I 42? Please don't tell me I'm 44 and like this year of quarantine really got to me and I gained weight. Don't be nervous. It's okay. It's just a number. So my point is be at a normal breath. So don't be sucking in. Don't be everything let out. Just totally be normal. Be cool. Be cool. Just be normal. So once you have that measurement, write it down, and then you're going to take your under bust measurement. which is going to be right underneath your rib cage. And you want to make sure that it's level all the way around. And by level, you want to make sure that it's not tilting down on this side or tilting back on this side. I will also suggest taking your measurements a couple of times a month too, because you can fluctuate whether you're around your period or not. Maybe you have a little bit of water retention and your measurements are a little bit inflated, but as long as you have a range and you know your range, that will be good. Also, we're making, the Fenix was drafted for to use fabrics with stretch. So when you have stretch, you have a little bit of leeway in your fit. So if you go up a couple inches, go down a couple inches, I'm sure you'll be fine. It's not like we're using woven fabrics where the sizing is a little bit more precise. So you'll take your full bust measurement, you'll take your under bust measurement. Let's just say it's 30. And you will subtract it from your full bust measurement. Let's just say it's 36. So you have a 6-inch difference in between the two. So that will tell you what cup size you are. Now, a couple of people, again, numbers and cup sizes are just, don't take them as like yourself, like don't judge yourself. So it's just a number. So what I'm trying to say is that, I'm getting way off subject. What we have found with the Fenix bodysuit, as people are starting to make them, is that they are sizing down on the cup size. So if you're in between cup sizes, I would suggest going for the lower one, not sizing up. That's just what we've been finding. And we are actually hoping to do a couple of collabs with some people who are a bust size difference of like 11, 12, 13, because we're finding that it can fit up to that difference. So stay tuned. So waist is just the smallest part of your waist. It's not where your jeans hit, it's not where your pants hit, it's the smallest part of your waist. So you're gonna have to find it. Some people have a higher waist, some people have a lower waist. So you just need to figure out where that is. Then you'll take that measurement. Write it down. And then you will take your hip measurement, which is the widest part. So some people have like a high butt and some people like carry the weight of their butt down here. So you want to just make sure that it's at the widest part of your butt. So that's how you take your measurements. You will use those measurements to find your size. There's a chart in the Fenix. Now, I know this question is going to come up. Well, I'm like a medium on top, and then I'm a small in the waist, and then I'm like a large in the hip. So what should I make? I will go over that when we get to the pattern alterations portion. Really easy, not rocket science, doesn't take any long division or you don't need a calculator or anything like that. So, but I will go over that. But yes, that is very common that people aren't the same size everywhere. So that's how you find your measurements. Okay, so now about torso size. So torso length differs so much from everybody. Somebody can be long here and then short here and then long there. Or they can be really long here and then really short here. So obviously with a bodysuit that you need it to fit all of these proportions, it's really important that you get that right in order for the bodysuit to fit. Now, what makes the Fenix a little bit, makes the Fenix like so great, is that it has the stretch mesh in the back panel, just one layer of stretch mesh. That is super stretchy, so it does help to fit many, like if you're a little bit taller, it will help it to fit, to stretch out and to fit you. But, what was I gonna say? Brain fart. But getting the, oh, that's what I was gonna say, is that the Fenix is based on somebody who is 65 to 67 inches tall. The Fenix and the Lauren definitely differ in torso length. So if you've made a Lauren, the torso length of the Fenix is like a tad, I would say like 1 inch to 2 inches longer. What we were finding with the Lauren was that it was short for the height we did it for. So we were like, do we change it? or do we keep it the same as the Lauren? Since we base it on a 65 to 67 inch person, we wanted to change it so that the rise or the torso length was correct. So if you've made a Lauren and it was too short and you had to lengthen it, you might not have to lengthen the Fenix. If you made a Lauren and you did have to increase it, maybe you don't. So just food for thought there. So this is your first, let's just say this is your first time making a Fenix. You have made a Lauren and you want to test out the torso length. First of all, what is short torso? What is long torso? And what is balanced torso? So a balanced torso is from your shoulders to your waist, the smallest part, is equal to your waist to your hips, which is right where your leg kind of like disconnects from your body. That is a balanced torso. If you are long torso, if you have a long torso, then this is shorter than this. If you have a short torso, then this is shorter than this and your legs. So there are a couple of ways that you can determine your torso length. Some of them aren't really reliable. I go over them in the Fenix pattern, but I just wanted to include it in there because I think it's good, useful information. One of them has you taking your elbows and putting them and seeing where they are at your hip. If they're lower than your hip, you're one way. If they're higher than your hip, you're another way. You can also tie a string around your waist and measure from each one and see if you're long torso or short torso. The best way to measure if the torso length is going to work is just to quickly make a Fenix. You don't have, it doesn't have to be like great, just like quickly sew it up to like just test it out. If you have a Maris bralette, you can also try that on and then measure from the bottom elastic to the waist and see if it's like good. See if it's okay. So those are a couple ways to test out your torso length. I highly suggest that you just quickly make one up and then just test it out. That is like going to be the most accurate way. I would hate for you to like measure and to make all these pattern alterations for it not to work. Just make it, see it, and a lot of it also has to do with the fabric that you use. So if you're making a test, just make sure that you're using fabric that is similar stretch percentage. So that's how to find your size, a little bit about torso length. I don't see any comments that came up. Just give me 1 second to scroll through it to make sure that I covered everything. The next section is cutting your pattern, cutting common pattern alterations, as well as cutting your fabric. And for that one, we're going to be doing a look down. So just give me, after I look at the comments, I'm going to switch the cameras. So give me a couple minutes to do that. Okay, so the next section of today's video is going to go over cutting your pattern, assembling it and cutting it, common pattern alterations, cutting your fabric. So the Fenix the Fenix pattern comes in an A4 letter as well as A0 format. The A4 and the letter are for print at home. The A4 has boxes around that you can cut on and align. The letter does not. And it was a game time decision. Everything was ready to be published, the Fenix, and we had to remove the boxes in order for it to work. And it is throwing a couple people off because they see the boxes on one version around the edges of the pages. Also, the Maris and Lauren have boxes around the edges of the pages, and when they see this without it, they're like, oh my God, what do I do? Am I missing something? So I wanted to go over how to cut the letter size as well. I have a couple pieces cut out here, so if there's no line on, so how do you cut it? So you see that there are these triangles on the edges, and it's about like 3/16, not even like 3/8 away from the edge of the page. So you're just gonna line up your ruler with the edge of that triangle. And I can see that's more, and that it's lining up with edges on the other pattern pieces, and you're just gonna cut that off. I also wanted to say that when printing the letter size one, you want to make sure that you're printing at 100%, but also borderless, because the lines won't match if it's not borderless. So you have to play with your settings in order to get it borderless. So once you cut off the edge of one side, you are gonna line up the little triangles. And you're gonna use tape to tape them. And then you will cut out your pattern. That's how it lines up. So one thing though that is coming up is that even though when people are doing it this way, some things aren't gonna line up. Now we tested it, everything definitely lines up, but a lot of it has to do with like how your printer is printing. So I don't have like the most sophisticated printer. So sometimes what happens is that when it's feeding in paper, it'll feed in the next paper like a little bit as it's feeding in the last paper it just printed. So as you can see, it did that with this one. That when you can see that it cut off the little triangle there. So it fed this one a little bit quicker than it should have, and it cut off some of the pattern. But if I lined up the other, this page was together, but if I line up the other triangle, these lines match and then these lines match up as well. And what I can do here is I cut out like a little piece of paper and I can put it underneath. And I can see like the lines are gonna match right here. And I'm just gonna tape that down. And you can see here all my triangles match. So once you have everything taped together, you will cut it out. I keep some of my old rotary cutters here for cutting out patterns. So I'm gonna do that really quickly. Ooh, before I cut this out, I know the next section is about common pattern alterations, but since I have this here all together, I wanted to go over if you were in between sizes. So let's say that you are let's just say you are a large at the hip, a small at the waist, and a medium at the underbust. So what you'll do is you'll grade from the large hip to, from the large hip to the small waist, and then back up to the medium underbust. So you'll use like your curved ruler and you'll just transition these lines so that it makes a nice smooth curve. So that's how you would grade in between sizes between underbust, waist, and hips. Okay, so I've cut out all of my pattern pieces. Let's go over some common pattern alterations. So one thing is that if you've determined that you will need to increase or decrease the height of the torso, what you would do is you would find out where on the pattern you need to increase it. But you would slash a line, slash a line, and you would either increase it, spread and open, or decrease it to reduce the height. That's how you would change the torso length. You just want to make sure that if you're doing it through, you're doing it through the waist and not doing it through the leg. Or if you're doing it through the leg, make sure that it's consistent. So don't increase the height here and then increase the height in the torso here. Just make sure that it's in consistent places. Another common pattern alteration that I wanted to go over was So somebody asked, so on the Fenix and the Lauren, it's very similar shape, not torso length, but a little bit similar shape. But if you can see here, the leg line of the Lauren is a lot lower than the leg line of the Fenix. The Fenix is definitely like a higher French cut than the Lauren. So if you prefer the leg of the Lauren, but you want to put it on the Fenix, you would use your Lauren as a template. So if you see here, I layered, this is the Lauren extra small, this is the Fenix extra small, I layered this over. You see all this here. So you will want to lower the Fenix here. You will want to draw a line just below this and then redraw that line all the way to the top. You don't want to just continue this line down because then you're adding all that width to the leg line. You're making your leg line like, if you're an extra small, like a medium. So the legs will be way too big on you. So you want to drop a line down here perpendicular and then redraw this line to the top. Another question that I got was, and you would do the same thing to the back as well. So this is a front panel, and then you do the same thing to the back panel. And if you see here, you'll want to use, see here? This is the side panel, so if you overlap these 1/2 inch, you will want to increase, you want to bring this down as well. Another question that I got for common pattern alterations, don't want to mix these up, was if you wanted to not use an elastic band, but you wanted to do a fabric covered band, what would be like the pattern alteration for that? So if you see here, this is a Mara sports bralette, but it has a bottom band that has an elastic encased. So if you want to do the same, and this is the elastic that is encased. So if you want to do the same thing and encase the elastic in it, what you would do is your pattern would have to be double the width of this. So this is 1 1/4. So you would make it 2 1/2, and then you would add 1/2 inch for seam allowances. But also when this is sewn together on the casing, you'll need to add, there's a seam here, you see that? So you'll need to add 1/2 inch for seam allowances. So that would be, you'd have to add another pattern piece for that. And then the sewing would be different as well. But I won't be covering that. I think those were the only pattern alterations. I'm drawing a blank at any others that might need increasing your torso length for sure, lowering the leg line. I think that was it. If you have any other questions about pattern alterations, feel free to email me. But those are the only two that I can remember. All right, so now we've gone over pattern alterations. Let's go over how to cut your fabric. Before we get to that, I want to discuss direction of greatest stretch. So on all your pattern pieces, there are lines, and that is called the direction of greatest stretch. That is the direction of the fabric that should stretch the most. So on regular garments, you usually have a grain line, but on lingerie, you have direction of greatest stretch. Now you might be thinking, how do I find the direction of greatest stretch? It's really easy. So you will give your fabric a little tug. Be sure to do it on the inside, not like right at the edge. Be sure, and then give it a little tug. And then one is going to stretch a little bit more than the other. See how this stretches a lot versus this? So this is the direction of greatest stretch. And whenever cutting out, you want to make sure that the direction of greatest stretch on your main fabric and your lining fabric or your combo fabric is going in the same direction. So also, you want to make sure if you've bought a Madalynne kit to lay out your pattern pieces before you cut, just to make sure that everything is going to fit. There isn't a pattern layout because the fabrics can vary so much. Let's just say you wanted to use a stretch galloon lace that's 8 inches wide. The pattern layout is going to be so much different than a 60-inch wide all over lace. So that's, I feel like if I gave a pattern or how to cut your pattern on your fabric layout, it would actually confuse people rather than be clear. So let's cut out our fabric. So I'm gonna cut out, this is kind of like my order of operations when I'm cutting out fabric. So I always do the back panel first because that is unlined, doesn't require anything to be spray basted, which I'll get to next. So I have my back all cut out. I will put that to the side. Now, since I'm already on this blue, I'm gonna cut out the other pieces that use the blue stretch mesh. Now, the kits come with, you can line it with the stretch mesh that's in the kits, or I'm actually gonna line it with another layer of this blue mesh, just to make it a little bit more blue. So I'm gonna use Game Changer Otis 505 spray adhesive. So I would do the same thing if I was using the stretch mesh. So you would spray base the main fabric and the lining fabric together prior to sewing. Just like that. And then cutting out all your pattern pieces. Okay, so I have all my pattern pieces cut out. So I'll go over what you should have cut out, or what you should have ready for the next session. So let's go over the main fabric. So I have my side cup, my center front cup, and my back band, as well as my, let me get all these situated. Center front panel. So now in terms of the combo fabric, and all of those were lined with stretch mesh. So for my combo fabric, I have my back panel piece. This is just it's not lined whatsoever. And then I have my upper cups. Which are 2 layers of the blue stretch mesh, but you can use just the beige stretch mesh if you want, or the power knit. And then I have my side front panty panels. And last but certainly not least, I have my gusset. All right, so that's the end of today's session. Next session, we will get sewing. So have all your pieces cut out. If any questions pop up in the meantime, feel free to email me, hello@madalynne.com, or send me a DM.